WIIFTV PM.
WIIFTBP. Media's just for you and me. WIIFTBP. Media's just for you and me.
Shop at Black-owned and operated Solo Beauty, where you are appreciated and respected. Located at 8158 South Cottage Grove, Solo Beauty can supply all of your black hair care needs. Solo Beauty is open from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m., Tuesday through Saturday.
All right, well, Angela, Oya Fumike. As you know, this is I Do, I Did, I Don't, the What's in It for the Black People media. Start our way into this journey of divorce and healing.
So we came together under a survival mentality, not under a friendship of being in love. First being friends, and then being in love, or growing in love. We came together under, we're trying to survive, we're two kids trying to survive. Okay, we're gonna survive together, because if you're handling this end of the survival and I'm handling this end,
Years that you've accepted this is what it's been, and now you've made this decision, and he wasn't there. He wasn't even seeing that you were done.
Here's what it was. Just like I ignored on the front end that he didn't love me like that, he was so disconnected from me by the point when I decided to leave that he didn't see the writing on the wall.
Wow.
Just didn't see it. But he didn't know that woman because he never took the time to meet her.
Mm-hmm. And so you created your plan, and that's key, I think, in having a plan. If you are going to, whether you're deciding together that this isn't going to work any longer and we're splitting, and having a plan on how you're going to move forward is pretty key. You knew at this point I had to create your own plan, and you were moving forward with that. In my case, I didn't have a plan. Things happened pretty abruptly, and I was creating the plan on the fly along the way. I don't recommend that. You forgive yourself. You forgive you. Do the work of forgiving yourself that you may be able to actually forgive others.
You keep calling me, give you some love and you want all of it. I'm out here working, nigga, get a grip. I'm just trying to touch a million, you just wanna coexist. I say you clingy and you contradict. Give you my heart, you think it's counterfeit. Give you my word and you won't trust in it. What's the point of loving me if you don't know what trust is? I need the ease you give now. Please don't back down on me. I know you've got the attention I need. Put your pride aside for me. Oh, 'cause I need that ease. Put your pride aside for me. That ease. While I'm out trying to get that ease. Know that I need that ease. Put your pride aside for me, baby. You're insecure, it's driving me crazy. I'm trying to get it and you keep on saying, get all my love, it's never enough. I put up with you for too long, now I'm over it. You shit, I need money. I'ma call it quits. That ease. Put your pride aside for me. That ease. While I'm trying to get it, need it. That ease. Put your pride aside for me. Put it aside, put it aside, put it aside, put it aside, put it aside. Put your pride aside, put it aside. On me. Put your pride aside for me.
Well, good morning. Good morning. This is Tasha here with I Do, I Did, I Don't on What's in It for the Black People Media. I have missed you all. It is so great to be back. We've been on a break for a while, and this is my first show back. So I'm glad to see you all. Thanks for joining. For those that are joining, we have a great show ready for you today. Good morning. Good morning. So I have a guest in studio today with me, Ladwina Smith, and we are going to talk about real estate issues in divorce and real estate matters in divorce. Ladwina is an Illinois licensed real estate broker, and she is also the owner of Home Smith Homes, and she has actually, as an agent, been engaged in some interesting situations around divorce. So we're going to talk about that today. We want to give you some knowledge so that you know how to operate, whether you're getting ready for divorce, whether you're in the midst of a divorce or coming out of divorce. So let me, I've introduced Ladwina. I'm going to let her say a little bit about herself also.
Yes, good morning, everyone. So I am Ladwina Smith. I have been involved in real estate since 2004, started off as an investor, and then decided to get licensed in 2006. So I've been a licensed real estate broker since 2006, and yeah, I have had quite a few situations and pertaining to divorce, and I feel like this information that we're going to share this morning is good. Like I told people before, it doesn't matter, single, married, somewhere in between. Everyone can take a little bit from this information and make it, part of their repertoire, make it something of value to them. So, yeah, I'm super excited to be here.
Yes, well, thank you for joining. We're excited also, we meaning me, but the audience as well. And so, I want to start and ground us first. So when we talk about real estate issues and matters in divorce, this is all grounded in how property gets divided once you are in the midst of a divorce. And I thought that it might be best, because this is something that I didn't do as a part of my divorce process. I never actually went through and read the divorce statute, the Illinois Marriage Dissolution Act statute. There's a lot of information there, but it will tell you quite a bit if you read it. So for your benefit, I actually want to go through and let you know what the one section says on its section 503. And the title of this section is Disposition of Property and Debts. So what it states is, for the purpose of this act, marital property, and that's what we're talking about, how marital property gets divided. Marital property means all property, including debts and other obligations acquired by either spouse subsequent to the marriage, except the following, which is known as non-marital property. So non-marital property is any property acquired by a gift, legacy, or descent, or property acquired in exchange for such property. So if someone left you property after they died, if someone gifted you property for some reason, that is considered non-marital property. Property that's acquired in exchange for that kind of property is also considered non-marital property. If you have a judgment, let's say you're going through the divorce, and as a part of the divorce, you've already decided, and there's a judgment from the court, a court-issued judgment about how property is going to be divided as the result of a legal separation, then that property named in that judgment is not considered marital property. Now, let me say this first of all. I am not a lawyer. And so let me give you the disclaimer that if you should absolutely seek legal advice. What I want to do is to give you some information that's based on what the law says, but it is your responsibility to make sure that you have actual legal counsel. I am not that. Okay, I'm giving you information. LaDuina is not that. We are both here to give you information to empower you as you have those conversations with your attorneys, as you have the conversations with your spouse or soon to be ex-spouse. We want to make sure that you're knowledgeable, but again, it's not legal advice. So let me also pause and say, I want you to share this broadcast. I want you to share it with folks that you know who may benefit from the information. I want you to like it. I want you to like, share, and follow What's in It for the Black People Media, and also my I Do, I Did, I Don't page. All right, so getting back to this. So marital property, basically anything that's acquired during the marriage is considered marital property, except these things that we've just started to talk through. So if you got it from an inheritance, a gift, a legacy, anything like that, if you've exchanged it, or if you had a judgment for property, this is your property, not considered marital property. There are a couple other things in here too around, like if you had a prenup, if you had a postnuptial agreement, all of those things that outlined what's yours, that would be recognized by the court as non-marital property as well. And then any property that's acquired before the marriage, if it's acquired before the marriage and it's in your name, that is considered non-marital property. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky, right? Because if you have non-marital property, but you have titled that non-marital property in both of your names, it is now considered marital property. Definitely a mistake I made. Okay. And I've heard of a lot of people that make this mistake because you're just not aware that this is the way the court will look at it. If you purchase property during the marriage, you purchase it with funds that are non-marital funds, meaning this was your money before the marriage. You have not commingled it with marital funds. This is your money. You purchase a property that is technically your property and not considered marital property. And anything that any increase in value that goes along with that, any income that you would generate from that property, that is all considered non-marital and it belongs to you. Again, the issue becomes if you commingle anything related to that property with your marital estates and your marital funds. And so it should be anything property acquired prior to a marriage. It should absolutely be non-marital property, and it's deemed non-marital property by the court unless you have commingled it with your marital information. So for the purposes of distribution of property, all property, I think this is something I need you guys to really listen to and hear. And we're going to talk and get into some of the situations that LaDuina has seen happen. For the purposes of distribution of property, which is part of the divorce, right? You're dividing your estate now. All property acquired by either spouse after marriage and before a judgment of dissolution of marriage or declaration of invalidity of marriage is presumed marital property. Let me say that again since I stumbled a little bit. For the purposes of distribution of property, which is what you're doing as part of the divorce, all property acquired by either spouse after the marriage and before you have a judgment of dissolution of marriage, or, if it was annulled, then it's presumed marital property. All right. So what that means is if you buy a property while you're in the midst of a divorce. So let's say you guys are separating. You have been separated for a while. You decide, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and get my own place. I have an opportunity. I don't want to rent. If you purchase that property while you're in the midst of the divorce and you have not got a judgment from the court stating that you are divorced and the marriage is dissolved, it's now considered marital property. So I'm sure, LaDuina, that you've seen some issues like this happen in your time as a real estate agent, broker.
Yes.
What do you see happen? What mistakes do people make, and how do you see that wind up playing out?
So one of the first mistakes that I see people make is not getting legal counsel first, like you just mentioned, right? So I'm not an attorney, you're not an attorney. People will YouTube it, and I'm going to ask my cousin, great aunt, somebody else who's been through it, and assume that their situation applies to them.
Yeah.
Right? And you make the mistakes, go forward. I've actually had someone who came to me and said, okay, I'm getting divorced and we need some place to live and I'm going to buy a house. And I'm like, wait, whoa, no. Have you talked to the attorney? Are you legally separated? Are you going to be able to? Because if you don't, then technically your spouse is going to have rights to this property as well.
Right.
And no. We got it all taken care of. And guess what?
It wasn't all taken care of.
It wasn't all taken care of. And so now you're in the process of getting a divorce. You just purchased a property for you and your children to live in. And that property is now considered marital property and part of the divorce. And I'm like, but I told you. I told you. So that's a huge one. Not doing enough of the pre-work. And I know this is easier said than done. Taking the emotions out of it. So many of the situations that I've seen that I've been involved with have a lot to do with just being deep rooted and set in that emotion and not being able to take the emotion out of the situation.
Yeah, that's really hard to do. It is very hard to do when you are, because it's an emotional issue. Just, it's not just in your mind, at least in the way that you've operated. Your marriage wasn't necessarily just a financial business agreement. There were lots of feelings involved. There were plans and goals and maybe children and property, and it's all this stuff that now you don't realize because you didn't really know before getting married how it ends up if it doesn't work. And that's why I say it's really important for people to understand what happens in marriage, because it really is in divorce, what happens in divorce, because it really is the only contract that you're signing where you don't understand the terms of how it ends. And that's pretty important. It is very important, because then you get disillusioned. Not only are you upset about the marriage ending and how all of that's going and how you're interacting with the other spouse, and now you're like, just lambasted by what the law actually says. And for many people, it's really upsetting. You're just like, what the hell?
What the hell just happened? And that commingling is huge. That commingling is huge. I've seen so many situations where people have come into marriage, into relationship with, their own property, and now, okay, we're living here, and there's a lot of loopholes. There's a lot of gray inside this statute.
There is.
And so one situation that comes to mind is the husband and wife. The husband had property that was his family's property before the marriage, got married. However, then they decided to live in the property that was the family property, right? So they moved into the property. Again, technically family property, living in the property. Some years pass by, a divorce comes. Well, this is my family's house. You have no rights to this house.
Right. That's what you would think, right?
That's what you would think. But guess what? Now, this is my homestead. This is where I dwell and live, right? We're in Illinois. It's homestead law. And this is where I raised my family. And guess what? I've paid a few of those mortgage payments over the years, and I can prove that. And guess what? I helped to get an addition put on the house, and I can prove that.
Wow.
And so now
you have rights to it.
Now you have rights to it. She absolutely had rights to the property, and now the whole family is mad because what is going on? This is a house that's been in the family,
right,
for 60, 70 years, and here it is, a 7-year marriage that you've come into, and this other person has rights to the family house now. So that commingling is a huge one. And
it gets complicated, right? Because on one hand you feel like, well, yeah, the woman in this case should have some rights if she helped pay for it, if she helped buy an addition on the house. But when you step back and look at, this is my family's property, this isn't just mine, this has been in my family all these years, then maybe we can agree for me to pay you that money back so that it remains in the family. But that's not how it always works. Again, why it's important for you to understand how things can end up in divorce so that you make the right arrangements up front during the marriage and you don't create a situation like that. And I know that there are a lot of people that say, when I get married, you know, we're two becoming one. We're just everything's gonna be together. All of our money goes into the same bank account. And that's okay. If you choose to do it that way, you just have to understand what the consequence is at the end of it. Should this not work out, and I pray to God that it does work for you, but should it not work out, you want to understand, here's what happens in the end. Then all of that money is considered marital property. And it doesn't matter if you're the only person that's working and the other person isn't working. Nope. The court doesn't look at it that way. So I remember a situation of someone telling me that they got married, they had their own property, their own home. And actually, I think the person had a number of properties, actually. And one of them, she decided to refinance one of the properties and refinanced it with the new husband. And so now the property that was hers, that had been paid for with her hard-earned money, refinanced with the husband's name on it, and he got that property in divorce. Yep. Which is crazy, right? It's crazy, and you think, well, wouldn't he just, you know, he knew, right? Wouldn't he just do the right thing and give her property back? No.
That's where those emotions come into play.
Exactly, because people don't act right when you start getting divorced. It's the person that you married is not the same person you're divorcing. And then when the lawyers get involved and start telling you what you can get and can't get, and you're scared that you're not going to be able to survive on your own, and people start doing all sort of crazy stuff. Yes. Had she known that by refinancing with her husband, that would have put her in a position where now he could actually own that property, she wouldn't have done it. Yep. She would not have done that and made that move. But it's things get really wild. Things get really crazy when you're getting divorced. Another situation that I heard about was another woman. I talked to a lot of women about these things. So another woman decided that she wanted to buy an investment property. And so she took money from her retirement in order to, and this was premarital money from her retirement. She took money to put a down payment on a property. Found a great deal, foreclosed property, in great shape, and this was her investment. So the intention was to rent it out to earn, have another income stream. So she took the money out, decided I can put a nice down payment on this, and titled the property in both of their names, she and her spouse's name. So when it came time when unfortunately the divorce was happening, you know, she's like, well, I used premarital money to buy this, to put money down. I'm the person that managed it. You know, I did everything with this property. And the court said, well, it was titled in both of your names, so it's now marital property. Yep. Even if you could prove before that money was, in her case, she could prove before that money was hers, solely hers, but it was titled in both names. So now you've commingled again, and it's considered marital property.
Really, really, really careful with those types of situations, with the commingling, with her taking her retirement funds. I've seen situations where people have done similar situations to that, and they have, unbeknownst to them, disinherited their children.
Wow. Because they took their retirement, put it in a property that was titled with the spouse. Yes. And so now, because in Illinois, your spouse
is your next of kin.
Yes, not the children. So
and they have disinherited their children. And so in that situation that you just mentioned, now technically, if something happened to both of them, his children, they've completely disinherited their children. So you have to be careful. The best thing to do in situations like that, and I know again it's easier said than done. I get that, everyone, it's easier said than done. Is if you can keep it completely separate, just keep it completely separate.
Yeah.
Just don't add anybody on to the title. Don't refinance in someone else's name unless it's a situation where you have to, right? You're about to lose the property, you have to. Don't do it. And then even if you do have to in that situation, get some legal counsel. Figure it out. Have it written out clearly, and then follow the instructions.
Right, because that's the other part. You can get the counsel and they tell you what to do, but if you don't do it, then
follow the instructions.
Yes.
I've had people get counsel, get a prenup. Okay, we're going to do this all the way right, and get a prenup, and it states in the prenup you're supposed to do X, Y, and Z. Just do X, Y, and Z.
And keep yourself protected. And you know what? I want you all to know that you're not any less of a wife or a husband. You're not any less committed to your relationship because you decide to take measures like that. Many times I think there's this feeling that, okay, well, I'm not all in, or I'm not doing this the right way, or I'm not doing it in the way my church would say I should do it, whatever that is. We have all these reasons and these other pressures that try to tell us that we should do it differently. And sometimes it's not even related. It's in conflict with our own better judgment, right? But we have these other things that are sort of telling us how we're supposed to operate in marriage. And you're not any less committed to your marriage. You're not any less of a wife or a husband because you decide to keep a property in your own name, or to purchase something during the marriage in your own name, and to keep things separate. So we're going to take a break. There's a lot of other good information coming up, but we'll take a break right now and be back. This is What's in It for the Black People Media. I Do, I Did, I Don't with Tasha and with LaDwina Smith. We'll be back.
Put your pride aside for me, baby.
WIIFTBPM.
WIIFTBP. Media's just for you and me. WIIFTBP. Media's just for you and me.
Introducing your trusted source for high-quality Black emojis, better known as Blackmoji. We believe Black is beautiful, and that beauty should be reflected in the digital market. Now there is an app that does just that, starting with Black Greek letter organizations. Blackmoji D9 offers more than an emoji app. It is a cultural experience of Black excellence. Download the app in the Apple or Google Play Store to access a specially curated catalog of emojis representing the Divine Nine. Use the emojis to celebrate Black Greek events, acknowledge current events, support social causes, and learn about esteemed Black Greek members who blaze the trail of Black history. A portion of every subscription goes toward a scholarship fund specifically for members of Black Greek letter organizations to help keep the legacy alive. Download the Blackmoji app today.
Oh, baby. I mean, I know that you're here with me and everything, but since you just left a few hours ago, I've just been going crazy. And I done come to realize one thing. Oh, baby, I miss you. Yeah. Ooh, baby, oh, darling. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Your love must be some kind of drug, baby, 'cause it just keeps on calling me, and I just need a hit of your love. It's got me shaking and feeling for your touch. Baby, of you I can't get enough. It feels like I done OD'd on you, babe. I'm addicted.
All right, welcome back to I Do, I Did, I Don't. What's in it for the Black People Media? This is Tasha here. I am sitting with my guest, LaDwina Smith, and we are talking about real estate matters in divorce. Before the break, we started to talk about the Illinois statute related to the statute for marital dissolution and Section 503, and just talked about what the law states in considering it marital property and things that are non-marital property. So again, my advice is to get legal counsel. I am providing information for you as informational purposes only, but it is advised that you absolutely seek legal counsel in these matters because they're complicated. Some of the things are black and white. Some of them there's a lot of gray, and it's really dependent upon your situation and the kinds of discussions you had or agreements you have and all of that. So just to recap a little bit, what we talked about is marital property and what's considered marital property by the court. It is anything that was purchased or acquired during the marriage with a few exceptions. It's non-marital if it was acquired as an inheritance, a gift, or some sort of legacy, descent of property. If it was acquired in exchange for that kind of property that you already owned. If you had a judgment from the court that already made something yours as a part of your separation or divorce. And then if you had a prenup or a postnup and you followed that and it laid out what was yours and what wasn't, then the court will recognize that. The only other times that something is considered non-marital is if it was acquired before the marriage, and this is relating to physical property, real estate property, not other properties like financial instruments or investments or pensions and things like that. But if it was acquired before the marriage, and you have or you've purchased it with premarital funds and kept it only in your name and kept it separate from your marital estate and assets, then that is still considered non-marital property. But there are some situations when non-marital property can be considered marital property, and that is if you title it in both names. So if you went to refinance it and you decided we're going to put both names on it, or if you wanted to, let's say you decide I want to make sure that my spouse has this property when I die, and you put their name on the deed, it's now considered marital property if you divorce. And so there are ways to do that in financial instruments and estate planning instruments that will help you to make those kinds of decisions so that in the event you divorce, then you're not giving up something that really should belong to you and did belong to you before the marriage. So anything that really you commingle, that is the word of the day, commingle. Anything that you commingle that was yours and you commingle with your spouse in your finances or your titling, your estate, it now becomes considered marital property. So we were talking about a few situations, and something came to mind for me of another, as I keep thinking about this, I'm like, dang, I talk to a lot of ladies. I don't talk to a lot of the guys. You guys got to, let's have some conversations so we know what you experience as well. But another woman I spoke to during the course started the divorce. They separated. She moves out of the property, and as they're going through their negotiation and trying to decide who's going to get what, her spouse asked her they agree he's going to keep the house. She had obviously made quite a bit of investment in the home, but as a part of that agreement, she decided to sign the quitclaim deed over to him. So she does that. And then it became a problem because now it was only titled in his name. Now, yes, it was acquired before the marriage, not before the marriage, during the marriage, it should have been split. But she had to then, she had already moved out. She was moving on. He now had all of the responsibility from the deed, but financially,
not the mortgage.
She was still responsible for the mortgage. And we don't think about that those are two separate things. You can have only one name on the deed, but two names can still be on the mortgage, and you are jointly and severally liable for paying that mortgage and anything that comes up related to that mortgage. So I'm sure you've seen some situations like this come about.
I'm actually dealing with one right now that is it's common, and I hate that it is so common.
Really?
Yeah, because same kind of the same situation, and the wife and husband divorced, and I actually sold them the house, when they were getting married.
Wow.
So I know it's like, and it's some years ago.
Uh-huh.
So they're getting divorced, and the husband is still in the house. The wife has gotten out of the house. He decided that he was going to keep the home.
Okay.
So she's like, okay, fine, you keep the home. It was in both their names, and the house was supposed to be refinanced into just his name.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now we fast forward 7 years later. 7 years.
7 years later.
And she's calling me because she and her now new husband are looking to purchase a home, and she cannot purchase this house because she is still on the old house.
Oh my gosh. So, okay, don't tell me. So he never refinanced. She never checked to make sure that was done. And so her name is still on the property, still on the mortgage as being responsible for paying that mortgage. And I hope he was paying it.
Okay, we would hope so, but no.
Whoa.
He has not been paying. And he has not been paying for a very, very long time. And she was not aware that he was not paying because it was in both their names coming to the house that he was living in.
Yeah.
And she was not notified any other type of way. So she just didn't know. And so now we're attempting to go to court to force him to get to refi and get out of his name. Well, he hasn't been paying the mortgage, and he doesn't have employment right now.
Oh my
so he
goodness.
cannot refi that property at all. I know it's horrible. And we're gonna put the little cherry on top of this situation.
There's more.
There's more. Wait, there's more. We're dealing with COVID right now.
Yeah.
And so they're like, we're not kicking this man out this house right now. We're not doing anything right now. There's no court right now for this. And so
y'all see the situation, the problems you create for yourself when you don't.
Looking back on that situation, because that's the learning experience right now. Looking back on that situation, right? What can we learn from this? When we look back on that situation, the first thing I said was like, okay, why couldn't he refinance the property at that point in time?
Right.
That's something that you can look into. You want to keep the house. She wants to keep the house. He wants to keep the house. Fine. No problem. Refinance it right now. We're going through this divorce right now. Why can't you refinance it right now? If there's some reason that pops up as to why they cannot refinance it right now, red flag.
Yes.
Red flag.
Then maybe we need to sell the property, and you take your half and go on your, or whatever the court deems is equitable, which may not be half, and you go on your merry way and figure out life.
That's correct. And I see this happen more so with women than men. Well, they'll give you time. Okay, you cannot refinance the house because you are a stay-at-home mom. You're not employed at this moment. And so we're going to give you some time to get employment and get up so you can refinance the house. Okay, great. The court gives you 18 months. Okay, do your due diligence. After 6 months, do you have a job? Are you working yet? After 9 months, after 12 months, do you have a job? Are you working yet? Don't just sit there and forget about it and just not let it. And I know, again, that's easier said than done because it's probably somewhat of a relief because you're like, I'm not having to worry about this situation.
I don't know. I wouldn't be able to rest knowing that my name is still on it and I could still be responsible for any screw ups by this person who may decide I'm not paying it anymore.
And know your legal rights. It's probably written in there that they have that amount of time. If it's not, then you can have it put in there. Okay, you have 2 years to get a job and get refinanced. You have to, stay on top of these payments. I need proof that you are paying this every single month. Right, so that you can protect yourself a little bit. And when it doesn't happen, okay, look, I did my due diligence. You don't have a job. We need to sell this house.
Gave you the time. And so, yes, because the court will say, we'll give this person time. The whole point, the court is trying to make sure that everybody lands on their feet.
Correct.
Right? In the
Win-win. They're looking to create a win-win situation.
And so if it's going to take 18 months for somebody to finance, I think that's a ridiculous amount of time personally. But the court will give people that much time in order to get something refinanced. So, all right, you check in. It's not done. What happens next? You go back to court and say, Judge, this isn't done. I need you to help. I need you to make a decision. Either compel them to get it done in the next 2 months or whatever that is, or we need to decide that this is going to be sold if the person isn't able to refinance it because you're holding me up. And so in many cases, some people have moved out and they'll rent until the divorce is final because they don't want to purchase property that now is marital property that becomes now subject to both people having a part of that marital property. So they rent until the divorce is final, and that's a good strategy, right? Unless you have your own premarital money that you can absolutely prove is yours that you're going to purchase something with, that's probably the best way to go. But if you are still tied financially to a mortgage, you have got to make sure that you undo that with the divorce and that you follow up to ensure that you are not putting yourself at financial risk. So this person, can you imagine her husband? Who is like, what?
Yes, and I feel so badly for her. She's literally on the phone crying to me because this man is like, what do you mean? What? And that's his question. Why didn't you take care of this?
Yep.
This has been around way before I got around. Why didn't you take care of this? I thought I didn't hear anything. In her mind, no news is good news.
So she's remarried. This person now is causing a problem in her new marriage. Yes. Because now you look like you haven't made sound financial decisions. Yes. And I'm questioning, did you want to stay tied to the man or what?
What happened?
So you're trying to move on in life. You've got a new spouse and in her case now she has a huge problem in her new marriage.
She has to fight to be able to get that house sold because he's not going to be able to refinance it. Right. So I've had to help her with getting paperwork together to get to court. And so we're back in court. She's going to have to fight to do that, and she's going to have to fight for her credit.
Yes, and she has to pay all this money.
She's going to have to fight for her credit. Yeah.
Wow. Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy situation. I know of another situation where someone had the same thing happened, moved out of the home, the spouse did not pay the mortgage, and eventually it went into foreclosure and the person had to declare bankruptcy because they were still on the mortgage. And even though they were divorcing, there was nothing that they could do about it at some point. The person wasn't paying. They weren't going back and they weren't going to be able to pay because now they were in their own place. So they didn't have money to pay two mortgages or rent and so eventually had to declare bankruptcy. So that bankruptcy stays with you 7-10 years. Yeah. So now, not only do you have to rebuild yourself from divorce, and now you don't have the same level of income. Now, on top of that, you have to deal with the credit impact of a divorce and of a bankruptcy. And in some cases, that bankruptcy has implications on you professionally. Yeah. So, folks, you got to really think about how you take care of yourself in these situations because it could be detrimental. It's already a big issue to start with that you're separating the property. And now, on top of it, you've got to potentially have financial issues and relationship issues that could result because some of this hasn't been taken care of.
So, and another thing it's slightly along the same level, have a little bit different. I've had plenty of situations where people have come to me. I'm normally involved after you've gotten an attorney, right? And it's a little bit different than a regular sale. There's normally at the beginning, there's 2 attorneys and a judge all already involved by the time I step into the situation. And in giving counsel and consulting, I told this person to get out. I'm like, get out of this deal. This house is not even worth it. You know, this was like around 2011, around the time where the crash. I'm like, this is a short sale all day long. I don't even know. The value is not there from a financial standpoint. This is not a good real estate investment. And because you're going through a divorce, you have a legal out.
Yes.
You have a legal out. Like, you can get out of this situation right now. Like, get out of it. And fortunately, she did. However, it took a lot of coaxing, right? And I say that to say, okay, think about situations. People put themselves in situations, again, with those emotions.
Yeah.
Where right? You know that you're not going to be able to refinance this property. You know, I've had a situation where a spouse absolutely knew that they could not afford the property at all. They couldn't even afford the taxes on the property. However, was so set on staying in the property. And it's like, no, you are shooting yourself in the foot.
Yep.
You're shooting yourself in the foot. You know?
I think that's one big issue, especially that women have, is we become tied to that property, the family house. Yes. We still want to keep the white picket fence and the 4 bedrooms and, you know, the nice yard, all of that, even when we know that we cannot financially afford it. Breaking the tie to that dream and just dealing with the really real, this is the reality right now, and making choices based on that. Sometimes it's really hard for people to just move forward and do that because they already feel like they're losing in the marriage, and now they're losing the rest of their life that's been built all of this time. But it's one of the main things that becomes problematic for women in divorce, is trying to keep the house.
Keep the house.
That is a huge expense.
Yes.
And trying to keep that house and keep up that same appearance or that same lifestyle. When your lifestyle has truly changed, you have to deal with that and make the best decision for you going forward so that you're financially sound in the process.
Yeah. And everyone out there that's listening, if you are involved in the situation, not even yourself personally, your brother, sister, cousin, friend, someone else is involved in that situation, be a good sounding board for them. Let them, have you talked to a real estate professional? Have you talked to, another type of attorney? Let me refer someone to you. I've seen situations where people have pulled me to the side and like, yeah, I'm thinking the same thing. Then tell them that you're thinking the same thing. Don't let them sit there and make those mistakes. They're highly emotional, right? They need someone to be like, okay, stop.
Yes.
This is not right. You don't need to do this.
Yes,
you don't need
because
to do
you're
this.
not thinking straight necessarily, and you do need the wise counsel. It's the worst thing when people stand back and say to you afterwards, oh, I didn't really think you should have did that, or I
saw that. I figured that was going to happen.
Yes. Then why would you, if you care about me, if you love me as a friend or a family member, then why aren't you telling me what I really need to hear? Mm-hmm. Are you worried about I'm going to be upset with you? Because I'd rather you be upset with me than to let you make a bad decision. And to just stand there and watch it happen, that is just...
Why?
Yeah, it's craziness.
Love your
it
people.
Crazy.
Truly love your people.
Right. And risk. Sometimes you got to risk that they might be a little bit mad, but
they'll be all right.
Eventually, when they're not as emotional and they can have a moment where they can think more soundly, they will hear what you have said. And they may even come back and thank you or apologize for being upset or whatever. They may not ever do that. But
you will know that you have done the right thing by this person. Because I can't live with that. I'm not that type of friend.
Yeah.
I'm not that type of friend.
Oh, my gosh. I have so many situations running through my mind right now where I'm just like, this kind of stuff is happening. You're just like, are you serious? Yeah. You let this happen, didn't say a word, and watched it and saw what was going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is not a friend in my book.
Yeah.
And I'm a friend where I'm gonna risk. I love you enough to risk my relationship to make sure that you're well.
Yeah.
And if you decide that we can't be friends anymore because I gave you some information that you didn't like, but I know that it was the right thing to do, I'm going to mourn that friendship. I'm going to mourn the relationship, but I wouldn't feel right not sharing my heart with you, not sharing what I thought was best for you. And you could disagree. That's fine. We'll still be friends, but man, I can't just sit there and watch the crazy happen and just let it keep rolling.
We're not talking about a bicycle or a cell phone. We're talking about the largest purchase that most people will ever make in their life until they buy a bigger house. Right. This is the largest purchase. Like, this is huge.
And it has a huge implication on your financial well-being moving forward. So for you all out there, be a good friend, be a good family member. You know, if you see the crazy happening, sometimes it's helpful. Let me give you a couple tips. If you're scared that they're going to be upset with you, sometimes it's helpful to just replay what people say so they can hear that it doesn't sound right, that it sounds crazy. Just be like, okay, I hear you saying, so you're going to stay in the house, but you don't have a job, and you're going to be responsible for it, and you're going to pay the mortgage. And then they're like,
did I just say that?
Well, yeah, that kind of doesn't make sense, does it? Because I don't have a job. Like, you know, there are some ways. There are some ways to get the information across. I've got some that's going to give it to me like, that makes no sense at all.
Yes.
But one of my sisters is going to be like, well, that don't make dumb sense. That's what she says all the time. That don't make dumb sense. Why would you do that? And you can't, you know, she's going to give it to me like, hit me with the 2x4 with it. The other one is going to be nice and like, okay, so you're doing this and you're doing that. And she's going to smile and be like, okay, you sure that's what you want to do? But you know, it comes across differently. So I know who to call when I need the 2x4, and I know who to call when I need the very gentle nudging to get me there. But anyway, marital issues in real estate, huge issue. One of the biggest things that you have to deal with in getting divorced. And so it's so important that you have information and understand how the court looks at marital property, how the court looks at non-marital property, and then what you need to do to protect yourself before, during, and after a divorce. We've talked about situations before, during, and after that all have implications on what life is like afterwards. I do this show in order to make sure that you can be better on the other side of it. And when I talk about being better, I mean that you are better spiritually, that you are better emotionally, mentally, physically, and financially. And there's a huge part of the property piece that is better, that you need to really consider so that you are better on the other side of it financially. LaDwina, I want to thank you for coming on the show and sharing your knowledge and sharing your information. Why don't you tell people how they can contact you if they are looking for an agent?
So if you are looking for an agent, you can contact me via email. It's Homesmith, Homes, so HOMESMITH, HOMES @gmail.com, or you can call me 773-850-0136.
All right, y'all. Well, thank you so much for joining today. Again, I do, I did, I don't on What's in It for the Black People Media. I hope this information has been helpful. And again, I hope that you are better on the other side. Take care.
You're always on my mind, every day. It's been too long since I had you in my arms, and I don't know if I can take any more of being without you. Even though it's only been an hour, it feels to me just like forever. And I am hoping that I can see you soon. I'm so addicted. Lord, Oh no, not for a minute, not for an hour. I can't get enough. I'm so addicted. Woo. I need to check myself into some kind of reason.